Hello and welcome once again to another exciting edition of C-Suite Café, a program where we bring the best brains, the best innovators, the best leaders in Nigeria for a conversation that will inspire, motivate, and make you be a better person than you were before you engage them. You don't see these people often, but through us, through C-Suite Café, you are going to be engaging them, picking their brains, and learning from their sterling performances in business and in policy issues. Today, like every day, we have a very special Nigerian. One of the most intelligent people I have ever encountered. I feel proud every day to be identified with him as a friend and a brother. He came here today crossing mountains and everywhere. This is the third time he has tried to be with us on this show. 3 times it's been difficult, but 3 times he responded. I am talking of no other person than Femi Awoyemi, Managing Director and Chief Executive of ProShare Nigeria. I am sure that ProShare doesn't need an introduction, even if Femi does. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kim. Nice introduction.
You know, for somebody like me to sit down with you for an interview, I will need to work very hard because keeping pace with you is an assignment on its own. You know everything, and even creating the topics for this interview for a person of your caliber was quite difficult. But because you're my friend, I will manage anyhow. And please tolerate me anyhow I handle it. We are going to get started by our regular quick fire questions, which will just require him to respond 1, 2, 3, 4 times briefly before we go into the major segment. Femi, the quick fire. Your name is Femi. Fame or money? Choose one.
Money. You said fame or money?
Yes.
Money.
Any reason?
Purpose is better than popularity.
Family or career?
Family.
Reason?
Everything is about family.
Investing in Nigeria or investing abroad?
Nigeria.
Any reason?
That's where you have leverage.
What would you be doing if you're not doing what you're doing at this moment?
I'd probably be into sports or something much more interesting than what I'm doing.
You mean what you're doing now is not interesting?
It's hard work.
Okay. Politics or private sector?
At all times, politics trumps private sector, but private sector is the engine of it. I would rather be in the private sector. It's an area where they have standards in which I can regulate without having to worry about too many other things that politicians have to worry about. But politics is more superior than those of us in the private sector.
Standards over politics. This is the end of the first segment, and we move. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Now, we want to get started by discussing Nigeria and development. It's a recurring question that we will keep asking. What is the problem of economic development in Nigeria?
Well, the way you frame the question is already a problem in itself. Because you are talking about almost 2 things that sounds more like an oxymoron. So what is the problem when we talk about economic development? Economic development by its very nature is a problem as well. So when you say what is the problem with economic development, that's really a crisis in itself.
We are in a perennial crisis. What are the inhibitions against development in this environment?
I think sometimes because we are too close to the problem, we do not see what the numbers tell us. As a country, in over 65 plus years, I think we are 65 years by the end of this year. The rate of our economic development, growth of economic development has not met the ambitions that were set. That is a fact. Is Nigeria a developing economy? You just need to look at the current numbers and see that we are. But there are two sides of the economy we are talking about. We are talking about the macroeconomy, where you look at the aggregates of the numbers, and then we are talking about the microeconomy. So at the macroeconomic level, has Nigeria done fantastically well? No, maybe not. But we've also had to deal with so many issues, ranging from ideology, the constitutional challenges, the nature and the structure of the Nigerian economy itself, the absence of the actual fiscal federalism that should drive development, and the notion that everything in Nigeria will be driven from the center. It's a very false narrative that creates development as a country. And the second part is about the microeconomy, which is about households. The common denominator in any economy is households. If you want to say this country is doing well, you look at our households doing well. So those numbers in the last 20 years haven't been, in fact, they've gone southwards in the last decade or so. So we're not. So when you say what is the problem with economic development in Nigeria, is that like any other country, it has taken us so long to come to terms to say we need to resolve a few questions. One, what is the ideological principle driving the whole country? That does not seem to be an ideological principle. Second, we haven't resolved our politics. So our politics is still about identities, about personalities, about whatever. And if you don't resolve those two things, you cannot resolve what you call your structure of your economy. Because it's all about politics now. Like you saw, for example, how we wanted to resolve the changes in the fiscal bill, like what state collects VAT or whatever. That's fundamentally not about the technocrats now. It's about the politics of it. Now you say, oh, everybody should do well and it can do. And it is in the maturity of our politics that economic development occurs. And then if you ask us, is Nigeria doing so well? No, we're not. But are we so bad? No. All you have to look at the United States, for example, right now, and see the turmoil they're in. And then ask yourself the same questions that every society goes through that challenge. And I think the conversation I'm having with you, hoping that those who are listening would understand, is to see the fact that the best question is that are households developing better than they were previous years? And the answer would be no. And that tells you my own answer that yes, we are not, but this country has actually grown far better than it was, at least in the last 3 years.
We always have to look at households, infrastructure gaps. It has taken Nigeria eons to have rail links across this Nigeria. It has taken Nigeria eons to have good roads. Water has become, pipe-borne water connecting cities and communities and estates with water has become privatized. If you don't create your own water, you won't have. Electricity is almost going the same way. If you look outside, you see solar panels on roofs. Each year we have budgets set aside for that side. What's the problem?
Okay, so there's
and then we always have to look across the fence, even though they don't have direct boundaries, but we have to look across the fence to places like Malaysia, to places like even Rwanda of recent. What are they doing right? What did Malaysia, for instance, Singapore do right that we didn't do? And we are also supposed to be peers. What is Rwanda doing differently?
So again, you are going back to the first answer, which is that if you don't pay attention to your politics, the outcomes will be what you see. But it is important that I say to you that if we spend so much time focusing on what has not gone right, we will not focus on what has done well. Almost 30 years ago, me and you could not sit down conducting this interview. So what has gone well that we're able to sit down to conduct this interview? If you conducted this interview, where would you show it? You will not be able to show it anywhere except for your friends, right? So we had a GSM moment where we had a GSM. What did the government do? The government decided to just make sure that they pass regulations to allow the private sector to operate those things and then do it well. So that was the first time we were able to understand the role of government and the private sector, and to understand that government, we will make the rules and create a regulator, but we allow private sector to work. What happened with the private sector? We blew up Nollywood. We blew up the creative industry. We blew up the music industry. People were able to then be able to let their music be heard. We also did much more. We improved the ability for us to do banking transactions, because the banks were then working off the back of MTN and what have you to conduct businesses. We also did what? We changed the way businesses operate. We were able, therefore, to have been able to move ahead of time. By the time COVID came, Nigeria was not so much in a difficult position. We were able to then tap into the technology that was available, so we were adaptable and we were able to adopt. Now, that decision for us to survive that COVID crisis was a decision taken almost 15 years ago during Obasanjo, which meant that this question of development can be reduced to a simple, well, there's nothing too simple. It's a simple question that, can you as sometimes understand what is needed, not just now or in the next future, and take the decision as government, and government get out of the way? Because government could not run NITA very well. Me and you grew up where we were tapping phone to call, and we were mastering things and breaking our the key that they use. Who does all that now? But somebody took a decision, got government out of the way without spending money, without increasing budget, and then did that. One last point. On the issue of the budget, Nigeria operates a very interesting budget. We operate what we call a zero-based budgeting system, which means that everything you spend in a year, everything that is budgeted for in a year, you spend. That is not a very smart approach to doing government. You know why? The inconsistency in your yearly budget with your national development plans means that you cannot continuously plan ahead. So that means you carry things forward and you improve, and then you can bring about accountability, measuring, and learning, which is necessary. I want to focus on the fact that, yes, we do have a problems, but I remember my youth growing up. I went to a school where I had to carry buckets to go to school. Nobody does that anymore. So the concept of incremental development as against what you call quantum development are two different things. Now, what is happening is that rather than we learn from other people, we don't have to learn, we can leapfrog. And with which areas in Nigeria leapfrogging? We focus so much of everything not going well, we don't look at what is going well. Do you know that in this continent of Africa, and sometimes in the global world, your banking industry has a faster, more efficient ability to transfer money and to facilitate it better than anyone? Do you know that the cost of our ability to function in a technological world in Nigeria is so better? And yet we have so many problems. I think sometimes when we change the conversation to look at the positive thing and just highlight what we can do exponentially better, the conversation changes. It then helps the politician, who the nature of our politics is also a big problem. By the time it gets in there, it's going to be worried about constituency project, this one. It's not having enough time to focus on things. So you spoke about budget. Nigeria does not have a congressional budget office, for example, whereby we can look at what's, for example, someone like a budget did, showing us all the gaps in the budget that is going on. That's not even a bad thing. If you are a leader of a nation, not somebody who is a critic, you will take all these problems in and understand that I'm going to cascade how I solve it. Are we where we should be? Definitely no. Are we worse than where we should be? Maybe we're not where we should be, but this country today is primed, and maybe you are not paying attention. In your lifetime, a Dangote created a refinery. Something your governments have not been able to do. It dropped a price far lower than what government is giving you. And yet we take it as normal, right? We have become used to not knowing how to appreciate what it is. Meanwhile, that is a private sector.
Yeah, I was going to come to that because Dangote is private sector. What is wrong with our public sector, for instance, getting our refineries working?
There are no public sector that is built to be efficient. The purpose of a public sector is to serve the people. The public sector that was created under the military era, it's not from a public sector under a civil society. The purpose of a public sector is that, by the way, Those are some of the most efficient, well, not efficient, the most well-trained men who have better education, better experience, better whatever. But they were trained to operate under a civil service structure.
Yes.
That means the bureaucracy. The interesting thing is this: Nigeria operates a British-style bureaucracy, but yet operates an American-style presidential system.
Presidential system.
The incoherence in those two systems means that there too creates accountability problems. So when you say you have corruption, it is inherent in the conflict of those processes. You don't get it?
No, I get it.
The inherent controls in the British system means that you would have to go to prime minister and you go through the... Well, that's not the same with the American system. So the two systems barely touch from a control position. But even at that, the budgeting process as well is also different. So the civil service budgeting process is also British. The other one is different. So when you ask why are things not working very well, pay attention to the cost of running your government. So the public sector, as it is in Nigeria, from my own understanding, they have been made to feel as if they control everything. But I just showed you that the two times Nigeria made significant changes was when we had the NLG gas project, when we made some, let me circle back. It was when we did Festac.
Yes.
Nigeria made a bold move. We delivered Festac. Nobody has seen that before globally. That same civil service is still the same civil service, maybe with a few changes. But they delivered it. It wasn't
But
private
under
sector.
a military regime, not a civilian regime.
Well, largely they still remain the same, but you have a point. Yeah, I agree with you. I concede that for you. But we did that. But we did something else. We did the GSM model. We also did something important. There was a time when we had a major investment around our sporting facilities. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we talk about branding Nigeria. What I'm trying to say to you is that I think under the current regime that we have right now, we have a situation whereby it is becoming glaring for people to understand that government, stay in your lane. Your job is not to dictate to the Nigerians, but to tell everyone to say, I'm going to pass this set of rules under which we operate. And that's why we have advocacy groups and whatever they say. And then we do so, and the private sector does it. And I'm using GSM as an example.
Now, you mentioned those, and they are key to the milestones we have achieved. What is the government still doing, pampering our refineries and some other businesses that are not primarily or shouldn't be primarily government? We're still spending money fixing refineries that are not working. We're still operating even the rail transport system rather than remaining in control and enabling the private sector to play in these areas. Why is government stubbornly still spending money in these areas and pretending to take ownership when they don't have the capacity and the competence?
So I would not hold forth for government, but from our position as analysts, here's what I can deduce. I think people misconceive the fact that because something makes sense, it also makes sense politically. You see, I started this conversation by saying that we don't pay too much attention to our politics. Politics will trump economics and common sense at any point in time. We don't pay too much attention to that. So you mentioned the oil refineries. I can also mention Ajakutas. I can also mention the National Stadium. It's been moribund for so long.
Yes, and the one they recently built in Abuja.
The federal,
Federal Secretariat.
Secretariat.
Yes.
There, you can go through a whole list. There are so many of those assets that are not there. But then the politics around those decisions is what we have less information about to make an informed judgment of why is it not being done. But even at that, the optics of it says that the politicians are not doing well in helping the country move forward. That's the optics. But I don't know those reasons why they do not do so. But if I were to look at it, I would look at it from a financialization position. What do I mean by that? So currently, the government has created, the last government and this current government have created what we call a MUFI. The Ministry of Finance Incorporated is looking at all the things Nigeria owns, all the things it owes. The truth of it that all the things we own are illiquid. They are physical as well.
Yes.
The things we own, are cash. We have to pay. That creates a misbalance. So when you want to say, how do we convert this thing there? We have a good example. We have the Saudi Arabia that showed us the example of their oil industry when they decided to privatize, which is what we sought to do with NNPC. But I'm sure you've seen what happened within NNPC until the president made the bold decision to get everyone out of it and refocus it entirely. And they said, let us start this conversation all over again. So I think if you look at the number of years it takes us to resolve the political question, that is where the problem lies. Not because the people who are running the country are not competent or knowledgeable enough. It is in resolving the political question.
Okay, earlier in your response, you mentioned the banks.
You've dropped your cues.
No, don't worry, I have them. You referred to the banks as, efficient in terms of money transfers, in terms of the enablement provided by technology, GSM and things. Increasingly, there are questions around our banking system.
What questions?
Well, people wonder why banks now make 1 trillion naira in profits when the economy is not well oiled and energized. Why banks should just relax and be making profits from fees and commissions rather than from interest from loans. Can you may have an insight.
So I don't know what the real question is, but if I surmise from what you said, anyone making profit during a period of economic turmoil is not a negative thing. In the history of the world, it is doing worse that people make maximum profit. It is during economic difficulty that people make maximum profit. You know why? That difficulty creates an arbitrage of sorts, where people are able to make more money than others. Now the question is, why is your financial system, institutions, who are supposed to be servicing entities in there, making money where those entities are not money?
Exactly.
That would be a legitimate question. But I can answer a few of them, right? One, the reason why the Nigerian banks, and by the way, you know what I do run into conflict with the banks a lot of times. And I'm sure some of them will be surprised with what I'm saying. Is that if there's one sector in Nigeria that has invested better than anyone in terms of strategic development, in terms of innovation, in terms of technology adoption, in terms of human resource development, and in terms of positioning itself within the Nigerian economy, it is the financial services sector, led by Nigerian banks. There are few companies, bar none, that are comparable to the Nigerian financial sector in terms of, in fact, the Nigerian banking sector sustained majority of the service professionals you have. Second to it will be the oil sector, and third maybe all the other aspects of it. Now, are the charges we are earning in Nigeria over the top or not? I think that's a very, very legitimate question, but something which Sterling Bank has sought to answer when it created no charges on transfers.
Yes.
And the way he was able to set it that the cost of operations of the banks are huge. The way they move fast and do all those things is because they signed up certain agreements on their technology, which is dollar driven. And as such, they try to recoup it. But if you are making 1 trillion, that means you can afford not to.
Yeah, you can afford to do a lot more.
Okay, so I think I don't have any answer to that. My own position is that I agree with you on that point, that they can do a lot more. And that at some stage, they also, but because of those 5 things I said to you, they constantly invest more in those areas to keep them ahead. The Nigerian banks, in terms of service efficiency, is far higher than any other institutions across its competitive area in the African space. In fact, it is the one that is pushing the capital market to also move ahead faster, as it were. So to the question is that the charges are much. I disagree with things like stamp duties, all those funny things. I don't think you should charge me for that. I don't think you should charge me for transferring money between my bank to another bank and pay 50 naira per month.
There are concerns now. You know, after Soludo's, what they call Soludo's solution then, which brought about the merger of banks, people felt like that the interest of owner, manager, this and that, which was blamed for the frequent collapse of banks, will be diluted because the banks are now quoted and there's no maximum ruler anymore. Now, of recent, there are trends of some key shareholders increasing their stakes to the point where they have become almost overlords. They alone can hold a board meeting because they have almost all the proxy votes because a majority shares belong to them. Is this not danger? Can there be a rule limiting one person's shares to a certain minimum, even if it's 29%, both direct ownership and beneficial ownership? You understand what I'm saying? Two questions in one.
So there is a lie that we have to tell ourselves, and that means that corporate governance requires that certain things must be done in a particular way.
Yeah.
We have to believe the lie to be able to have some modicum of sense, to make sense of how we order society. Mm-hmm. Inherent in that lie, however, lies a conflict, which is that until we change formation of capital, it will be difficult for you to actually hold on dearly to that lie as being sacrosanct. That gap between the lie and the reality in formation of capital means, therefore, that you would have to recognize that until you or every other person can form capital in a very diverse manner, in which you will have what you expect, whereby what you have owner-managed banks is not, becomes a problem. So in that your question, there are two different concepts of what I call school of thoughts. The first is this. In an owner-managed bank, and as what we saw, which brought His Royal Highness Sanusi in to take decisions and stop the, what you call incestuous relationship between regulators and companies, and so to bring it down. Would you continue to have that because the way capital is formed means that those are the only ones who can raise money either through private placement, public offers, and rights issue, and they're able to put deposit? And if you consider also the rules of the market, because most of our companies are listed, you will find a situation whereby the listing rules, which is supposed to provide the free float required in the society, have been amended to deal with the fact that there is lack of depth in the market to absorb those substantial money. Having said that, however, I do not think you are wrong to raise your concerns in those areas. Why do I say so? We have evidence of where owner-managed banks is at. But if you look at the reality today now, the banks that are successful have been those who have a majority owner. It provides one, some level of stability in the organization, and in some way it allows for decision making to be faster, more effective, and without rancor. The ideal is what you propose and you represent. But the transition and the transmission towards that ideal is going to be something that we're going to be engaging in. Something ProShare does all the time because we hold them accountable on those areas. But if you ask me honestly, what do I believe? I will give you the answer somebody told me. One of those people you are talking about. He said, Femi, until you have 200 billion in a bank, then come and give me that lecture. I don't have that money right now, so I can't give that lecture, even to you.
Okay. let's move slightly away from banking back to Nigeria. There is a very strong disconnect between the citizens and Nigeria and the Nigerian state. So many negatives. What do you think is behind it?
So many negatives.
Yeah.
Quite a number of positives as well. But the answer
in terms of sentiment,
the answer is very simple. The trust deficit between citizens and the leadership is high. There is a report that's always produced by the leading trust report. I think it's the Alderman's report. And he has consistently shown that rather than it abating, the trust deficit has been growing in the last 2 decades. But it's not just between leaders and citizens, it's between traditional institutions. If I were to give a honest answer, is that my study of trends and cycles shows me that every time there is an innovation period and disruption occurs, trust deficit increases. Because the majority of the educated population have known certain ways. So when the changes occur, and it is not done in a transparent, accountable, and perhaps in an equitable manner, it then expands the trust deficit. So yes, I agree with you that there is a increasing trust deficit between our leaders and the citizens, between the traditional institutions of the state, i.e. the police, all other agencies of government, including even your hospitals, your schools, your public schools. There's a huge level of trust deficit. How does government seek to bridge that thing? I think they are not going to bridge it by using the same old approach they used to create the problem in the first place. So if I have a deficit problem with the traditional institutions, and I also have a deficit problem with the leaders, I'm looking for something else different. But you see, those something else is occurring right before our very eyes. We're not paying attention to it. Now, the government itself is now having to deal and worry with those things. Let me give you an example. The media, for example. We used to gather around to read stories in the media and believe it to be true. You remember that time during the Avila eras when they drove the real activist media underground, like the temples or whatever? People bought all those papers, right? Because we believed that was the truth. Even when the mainstream media was trying to write the truth, they went after every one of them. Those were the golden ages, right?
Yes.
How many people would worry about what comes out from those media today? If you picked a newspaper in the next few weeks, you probably look at it, it's almost like going with the same headline, all of them. Is it like all of the news people gathered in one room and they got the same news at the same time?
It's a challenge that I think we're still going to talk about. But let's go from...
No, you cannot therefore separate the issue of trust in society with the information you consume in society. So you are looking at it, and most people look at it from an external thing. But you forget that we are also part of the problem because it's a two-way street. The social construct is between the citizens and whatever. So the citizens run the media. Government used to run media now. Yes. Nobody bothers with NTA per se. But we forget that the largest, most powerful institution in terms of media in this country is held by the government. Let me explain to you. They have NTA. They have Voice of Nigeria. They have
Federal Radio Commission of
Radio Corporation. Be counting it in all 36 stations, in all local government, with the airways, with the broadcasting corporation. Are you kidding me? That's the most powerful tool. But yet, I'm not sure anybody goes on social media now to say we had something from any of these agencies that we are discussing. So in effect, what has happened right before your eyes is that the construct and the believability of what people take is no longer those structures and entities anymore. They just serve the government they serve, for which the citizens have a schism in terms of trust with. Now, the nearest person available, including the crew here, will probably take their news from social media. Yet, we know that social media, we have fake news, we have whatever, People don't discern too much.
We have hired influencers who
Hired
propagate those things.
influencers, it's a changing them. But yet, because the people don't trust, it is easier for them to believe. So if there's a problem you want to deal with, is to address the trust issues, not this. And so you then understand. And that's where you find that, and I will say this, and I hope I won't be crucified for it, is that that's the reason why we created an engagement between the leaders and the society. When was the last time we had a civil engagement whereby the media sat down and held either a governor, a president, or a local government chairman accountable? Because for some reasons, we have gone ahead and blurred the lines between PR and media. You do not know. So people, even if they hold that session, people may not take it seriously. Because it's almost like a scripted thing.
Yeah.
So the fundamental question is the trust deficit.
Trust deficit for a government that is daily talking about branding themselves, even talking about engaging the world, moving foreign investment. This, especially the trust deficit, whether you like it or not.
So are we saying that they're mutually exclusive, therefore? Trust
No, they're not
and
mutually exclusive. You can't, a government desperately chasing branding must have some level of trust deficit, either with its internal customers or with its
So let me
external
understand
customers.
your question by asking my own question this way. So they say Nigerians are corrupt. Nigerians have been known to be involved in 419 and stuff like that. Is that the image or the brand of Nigeria, or is it because we have devoted less time to focus on the other good things that are available to us? So that means that it is a deficit of our conscious representation of who we want to be seen to be, and then just freely allowing others to define us. For example, Jamaicans, for example, we say ganja, smoking, whatever. But by the time they got into the diaspora, what they represented was their culture, their reggae, their athletics, whatever. So the image changed, but nothing changed in the economy, but the image of the country changed. Do you know the image of Nigeria outside this country is far better than those of us who are living in the country?
I don't get that impression. I don't get that impression.
Do you know, I will be honest with you, do you know that a country's brand image and most of its things is mostly influenced by their diaspora? Because it's cheaper for you to market through your diaspora, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. So a Nigerian guy does a skit and is making more money on Facebook than any other person in Africa. Why is that so?
Nigerians in diaspora.
No, yeah, perhaps. I'll give you one story. So you remember when we started this GSM thing, right? We used to listen to music from foreign artists all the time, right?
Yes.
Foreign artists in Nigeria. You know, the juniors and preachies of those world, we never bother. We just listen to them when we're drinking, but never in a party. We listen to Shalama, Kuje, all those. But you know what changed all that? GSM. Prior to that, it was ringtones. Prior to that, it was accessibility, it was distribution networks, it was ability to then send those things outside the country. And so it became acceptable that if you did not play a Nigerian artist, the person was backward. The government never sat down to write a policy on that. The only policy they did was to make it available for people to do their own thing.
Now, yes, I agree. Music, movies, apart from oil, banking. Well, banking, but apart from this, there are no other exportable items.
Are you kidding me?
What else are we?
Human resource, the biggest thing this country has.
Which is what we're complaining about in here, Japa, that everybody's leaving this place, nobody's working, nobody's running our, even the few production lines that are here.
It came, okay, so I'm not speaking.
Or are you one of those that believe that Japa has economic value?
If I have the opportunity to advise government, I'm going to weaponize Japa. First and foremost, let me explain to you. if you look at your educational system, the number of kids we give birth to, if you pay attention to that growth rate, is that the number of people that are eligible to go to primary school, we have more people than the primary schools available. So there are people who drop by the wayside. By the time they pass through primary school and go to secondary school, we have more people that secondary school can accommodate. I'm talking about quality education. So another set drops by the wayside. This was where those people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowos, and Aminu Kanos and so created what you call technical education. So those who could not do well in school, they said those who could not do well, but not those who could not afford to go to school. Because now there's a restriction in number of size. They are falling by the wayside. What do you do with them? If you don't do something with them, they go into the deviant pool. That's your armed robbers, your stealers, and your gangsters, and all those who are doing so. By the time they get to university, the number is shrinking. So by the time you come out, what are you doing? So a nation that recognizes that, that's why we decided to create the NYC, which was a great thing because it helped us to unify ourselves. I would never have been to other states I've been to if not for NYC. I've never met the people I met. So it has its good side. But it similarly might have outlived its youthfulness in the structure in which it is, unless it is shaped up. But here's the question. Some people, the NYC may be their best attempt at employment. But the educational system was training people for employment. The educational system we need today is we must train people for separate things. For proficiency, that proficiency will create either direct employment or services like a service provider. It's a whole changing world. Now you have Nigerians, your numbers continue to grow. There is a limit to which your economy can afford. It came if you start having children, more than you have. It goes beyond your resources. What happens to those children? You remember what we used to do then, our fathers used to do? They would send one to the Reverend Father, they would send one, what were they doing?
Balancing their books.
No, but it was Japan. They were sending those, they were exporting those assets out. I'm saying that if you created a system whereby Nigerians are not exploited or sent to somewhere like Ukraine to be working in a place where they may be bombed in a Russian factory or something like that, or Russia, you understand? But they are actually positioned and say, look, we have a talent here. You've studied well. The opportunities in it. By the way, and I'm not lying to you, you could Google it up there. In the digital literacy space, there are about 800,000 jobs, which is available now in the EU. Some of them don't even have to leave Nigeria to go do it. But I'm saying that should they want to leave, that's not a problem. But we should help them leave so that they are not exploited. They are not dying on the Mediterranean
my problem is with your position is that there are gaps in our education system. You said they train our people for employment, not for creating things and running businesses. Mm-hmm. So if we have the few leave, who eventually changes those things internally? If, for instance, our good teachers leave, or our potential good teachers leave through the Japa weaponization, like
so we're not talking about hypothesis here.
Yeah.
It's already happening. So we're not talking about if. It is not about if. It is real.
It's happening. So are we not
wait. Look, it is not about if. They're already leaving. When they leave, therefore, they go through about 2, 3, 4 years of where they settle in, getting their papers and all those things, be that through schools. Some are doing nursing, care, working, and they do jobs that are not important. What I'm saying to you is that if you as a nation do so well, understand. Let me give you an example. If you've spoken to people in the Nigerians in diaspora, Europe, for example, they will show you that some of the leading lights in academics are Nigerians. In medicine, they are Nigerians. In sports, NFL, NBA, the NCCA in the United States, they're there. In Canada, in finance, in social work, they're there. In Europe, in science, a few members serving as members of parliament. The Nigerian population that are doing extremely well.
Disconnected from Nigeria.
They still keep to their roots. They identify. They are no longer saying, my roots. No, they identify as Nigerian Americans.
Now, I'm saying this. We are likely, and I'm saying it both as a statement and as a question, we are likely going to, or like you said already, walking on manpower tightrope.
So you have a gap in Nigeria, right?
Yes, we have gaps here.
No.
So how do we fill those to be able to produce those that will
there are a
jackpot
number
tomorrow?
of people in this country today, without mentioning names, who are working assiduously to bridge those gaps by training what you call a fit for purpose, what you call the next generation of teachers. So you now have things like Open University, you have digital universities, you have people who do not have to go to physical classroom, but you have people in classrooms who are doing well. It then beholds that you now have an increasing number of universities and private schools which are now working with what? Global standards, right? They want to be competitive. You don't have new schools coming in here. You have new hospitals coming in here. You have new doctors coming here. The curriculum for the School of Medicine is changing. So what happens is when you're going through disruption is that you are the next generation that will come in, who you call gap, will learn new skills to be there. The only thing we are not doing properly is to say, for those who stay, how do we help retrain them to make sure that they do not lose their employment or their value? It's already happening. Look around this neighborhood where we're doing the interview. It's not the same place you saw 3 years ago. It's not the same place you saw 5 years ago. The system is changing right before our very eyes. Is it working for everybody? Hell no, it is not. But it's also part of the transition. It is that part of the question we should be holding government accountable. That you see, whenever a new system comes into a society, we should help those who are already here. You understand? That's what you call retooling, reskilling, and helping them to be relevant for the new, so that we don't discard them. But the new generation that will come in is there. If you sat there with a 40-year-old in a public school, in a private school, the gap between that person and the 40-year-old in a public school is wide now. What?
Now, is that gap not itself eternal displacement?
I agree with you. I have nothing against. I have
creating future.
No. That's the gap. I'm saying that is where we start holding governments responsible, right? Because see, the gap is that your job is not. Okay, let me give you another example. If you look at all these programs that everybody announces most of the time, they say, oh, they are creating innovation hub in this state, in that state. That's for those in the urban areas, right? We have people, good people, committed people, decent people in the rural areas. We are not doing more programs for those in the rural areas. You know what we do for people in rural areas? Poverty reduction. And the way we reduce poverty,
palliative.
The way we reduce poverty in the rural areas is to actually go there and actually help them if they so choose. Because there's another thing that is good about this country that I think we should do more of. Our rural areas is unique to us. I would not like to see a disruption of the rural life in the way it is. It offers a unique competitive advantage to us. It keeps our history, the culture, the traditions, and whatever, and it also will present itself as our own unique template. So every time you go, I see in the rural area they are putting bridges there. No, you are disrupting a competitive advantage. The advantage is that I may want to choose to live in the rural area. And so they set up. Okay, so I say something to you. I always tell people the job of a governor, I don't know how they define it, but the way I define it in my office is to say it is the job of managing the square kilometers in the state. So if you took a state map and you divided the square kilometers, you have to calculate the number of places where you are earning revenue, as in taxes and whatever as a government, but you have to balance it to create areas for recreation, for spiritual development, for education, for agriculture, you know, all those things, for culture, for tradition. Everything cannot just become industrial, and you then lose who you are as Africans. Imagine all this.
Because our politicians mistake urbanization for development.
It doesn't. It shouldn't be the same.
They are two different things.
No, I believe wholesomely in what you have just said. They are two different things. I believe our rural area, what we just need to do is to help them. Their needs are unique.
Create infrastructure.
Help them make it a bit easier to live their way. Like good roads that pass through their town. That's not going to be a big deal. but they maintain the farmlands, the animals, the conservative nature. You understand? That's how the society, and this is where I believe PR and media, and the media can really help society. We don't need to have an advocacy group to do this. This is who we are. What makes us unique as Africans is the fact that we are connected. If you grow old, your child looks after you. If you do this. Now, the question that you can use to challenge this concept of people moving overseas is that it contradicts this position I've taken, because the family life is, family structure is therefore fractured.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because now most families are growing up with people in different countries and we don't know who we are. But it's a phase. Sooner or later, as we grow in our development here locally, you find that people move from there back here as well. And so while you are going through difficulty, those relocations occur. But if you have a government who is clear, we know that we'll do it for the next 20 years. So by 2040, Nigeria should be in a place whereby we can have minimum things like constant electricity, either through renewable energy or whatever. We can have a good educational system. We can have secured environments where people can go. And the rest is that individuals can thrive because they can be a global citizen. You see what I'm trying to say? And as such, we should recognize, therefore, the phase we're in. So my solution is that, well, I'm trying my possible best to eliminate the contradictions in what I've said, is the politics that drives us, which we are not paying attention to, is the key to their economic development.
Incidentally, people like you with the brains to make things happen are averse to politics,
I'm not averse to politics.
to playing partisan politics.
Okay, so I don't know where that term was created from when you say partisan politics, because it then reduces the definition of politics. By its very nature, that's what it is. But politics is how society works. If you study your Bible very well, the politics in the palace courtyard is huge. The stories of Saul, David, you understand?
Jonathan.
The palace politics has always been there. Some of the decisions that affect a whole town might have been taken because of either some minor.
Napoleon and his wife, Hitler and
Then
his
when
wife.
you go over, if you go through history, all the centuries, we went into World War over what?
A woman.
So they say. But it has more to also do with economics. They've used that woman thing. Yes, it might have been the trigger, but it's about economics. Japan, the Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
was all about economics. There were decisions made that affected its economy and decided to attack America, and America moved against it. And that's why the most severe thing, where was the war? Why was the most severe thing in Japan? So let's just not get it confused. We went through a civil war in Nigeria. At the heart of it all, it was politics, but it was about economics. It is our deeper understanding of those two things, which are not mutually exclusive. One just trumps the other. And when we begin to understand that, we can understand every other thing. When you talk about people doing jackpot, you know why governments don't ever complain? Because that's why you get most of your remittances back to your country. Why did Donald Trump say he's going to tax everybody sending money back home? So when you're not in a bad situation, what happens in the olden days? We used to send people out. Why did we, as a family, go to marry in other people's places to have more wives so that we can build families? Because we wanted to grow the economics of the farm and also to build relationships with trade partners. They are not mutually exclusive. And so when you take politics and you take economics on that level, the next thing you want to understand is that perception management, reputation management, and what you call sovereign branding becomes very key. The combination of those five means that even if you fail one or two, but if you get it slightly well, but if you manage the last three, you can build something for yourself.
Let's look at, you mentioned it, nation branding. I think we have taken a lot of the issues related with it by addressing some other things. But then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things the government needs to do. It may not be up to 5 anyway, but the government needs to do to strengthen, one, the perception with our internal publics, Nigerians, whether they are here or they are in the diaspora, with those who may want to do business with us abroad. What are the fundamental steps?
So the question I ask you, what does the country need its brand to look like? The Nigerian brand is that this is a nation of resilient people, incredibly hardworking people, and people whom, if you want to do business with, you can trust and have confidence in, right? That's the people side. From the nation side, this is a country that is open for business. It is a rules-based society with an ease of doing business. And that if you come to Nigeria, the weather, the people, and the institutions of state are very, very ideal for you to conduct business. Those two combinations is the Nigerian brand. Both for the government, both for the citizens, both for whatever. We are a religious, tolerant nation. We're a secular nation. We're people who loves culture. We're people who welcome you to our nations to join in or whatever. So when you say, what should we do? Do you know there was a time there was an argument whether we should be calling Nigeria Niger or NJA Niger?
Naija.
9JA or Niger or whatever. And they said, no, some people in government a decade ago said we shouldn't do it. Now, do you see what they write on the jerseys of players? We write Niger. Now, did government take a decision on it? No. Did government take a decision on the quality of movies that will be shown on Nollywood? If you went into Kenya, for example, and you're going in there, you will see the picture of, I'm not sure whether it's Stella Damascus or someone, or Ramsey Noah. You see people crying just to see these people. These are people that will walk past you don't even care about it. It's because we don't really understand the Nigerian brand is very strong. Oh, we are loud. Everybody knows that about us. We don't take nonsense. Everybody knows about they are good ambassadors. We are not perfect people, but we are Nigerians. We are the land of people who nobody can conquer. We are the people who can take an administration and say, we will persevere. And then when we say no more, we come out and say no more. We're a nation that changed from military to civilian. We're a nation that's kept a civilian administration for 25 years. We're a nation who are saying that the country is not working for us, but we will still find a way to do so. We don't have to be unnecessary. When it comes to it, this is also the same country where Nigerians youth gathered and said no more. That's who we are. That's in our DNA. What has the government done deliberately to build the Nigerian brand? Tell me. The Nigerian brand is organic. What we then have to do is to understand what is government policy to help these Nigerian people to do better, and then we accelerate it from PR, media work, and what do I call it, engagements. You are also building the Nigerian brand. Me and you are talking freely. How many African countries can you see people talk freely like I'm doing with you? So whenever we talk about the Nigerian brand, it's not an abstract. It's in our essence. It is who we are. From the guy who clowns himself as a senator, from the guy who is serious as a senator, that's who we are. We're not a narrative. We are a descriptive entity. You see children leave this country and go outside, and somebody talks to them and say, I'm in Nigeria. Why are they feeling so proud when they're outside than they are inside?
And it wasn't usually like that.
Come, you've answered the question. So what was there that anybody did? Here's the few things that happened. Again, technology, social media made it easy for you to be yourself. It made it easy for you to say who you were. Did you see that viral video of this young, I'm sure it's a lady who came to Nigeria to visit, and they started playing the flute in Igbo land.
Okay, yes, I saw it.
Did you see how that person, she did all the dance correctly? That means everywhere where she was living, she's never been to Nigeria. Their parents taught her their culture. Did you see when she had the flute?
Yeah.
Something in her spirit woke up. That's why I said that Nigerianness is in your essence. But is Nigeria working for everybody enough for them to feel proud? No.
Is government doing enough to make sure that we intentionally harness the energies flowing out from these things to put them in a tangible basket where we can make statements to the world? That's the question.
In all the things I described now, I didn't mention anything government did.
Yeah.
Maybe what we should be talking about is we need government to get more out of the way than get in the way.
But look at South Africa, selling the South African brand in Nigeria, taking to our radio stations to advertise brand South Africa.
No,
that boldness.
You are looking for business and you are looking for money. That's different from what I'm talking about. No. Maybe that's what you're looking for. You're looking for business for your colleagues or money.
No, we are not even at the level where we can look for business.
What I'm saying to you is that I'm saying that government should get more out of the way.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? If you or your colleagues decide to do something called Nigerian brand, there are so many things we've done in Nigeria. We did a movie, what's it called, awards here. We do FinTech awards. People pay attention to us globally. They did the Met Awards recently in New York, right? We did another, I think it was AMVCA, right? Did you see the quality of clothing and whatever they did there? Very high quality.
Yes.
Now, which shows, this is how nation branding, it's organic. Somebody therefore captures it, writes a story about it, or does a documentary about it. That is the brand building you need. It is first the organic. Did you see, when we were growing up, did you see how, I felt disdain to go in a Mulwe. But you see how many people now clamor to be in the yellow black thing, which you don't even have anymore. Now they use it in movies, they use it everywhere. They use it as a symbol of Lagos, the yellow black.
Yes.
But you know we regretted ever moving around those things, right? But we never changed anything. Did you notice when we did that iconic bridge? Nobody knew that bridge. That bridge was not done by Sukho State government. It was by those in the residents there who wanted a connection to another place. They built it. It then became an iconic symbol of Lagos State. Through history, branding, and what people connect to, what is iconic, what is something that they connect to, is organic. Fancy in Lagos is organic. Maybe they get support from government, but until they do so, Judy Obe has always been there.
It has been.
But until Glo got in, only 1 or 2, 3 years ago did the government start paying attention to it. We have it. We have the Doba
festival
in the north.
Ofala in
Enugu. In Abriba, you know, whenever they do that age group, whatever.
Yes.
It has been there. It was created to even deal with. It was even created to deal with the situation when they went through during those township wars. But it has created a society. Has anybody sat down to go and do a video shoot of Abriba land and seen the kind of quality of houses people live in? And so you can counter them when they show you pictures of people saying that, oh, UNICEF wants $1 for children dying in Africa. No, we're dying. There are problems here. There are those. But there are also real stories here. So the consciousness through where government supports you is to say, I'm saying that government should get out of the way, give you endorsement, give you kind of things whereby you can raise facilities. But we have too much government. We have too much of a regulation in this country. And whenever we talk about government, are we talking about the federal government all the time? Because then it runs contrary to what I'm telling you about our politics. Because there's the state government and there's the local government.
Yes.
This government has given us what you call autonomy for local government. It's not working as it should. Maybe where we pay attention is that this local government should be able to meet up its responsibility. At least it generates revenue, right? It's our first point of contact with government. And that's why I said to you that I understand the concept of incremental development. The only problem I have, which is consistent with what Prisha said, is that the rate of growth within that incremental development is far slower than the capacity available to the country.
Yes.
And that much I would agree with, and I would defend any other day. But I would not say that we're not. I think we lost about a decade to incompetent leadership. A decade.
Yes.
It would probably take us 20 years to catch up back again. But I think we can accelerate it.
Okay, thanks so much. Let's look at the Nigerian media. Are we growing or are we regressing, even with all the technology available to us?
So when you say Nigerian media, what was the Nigerian media? The Nigerian media I grew to know was such a fascinating group of men. They were not perfect, but they were men that were led with the principles of one, holding government accountable, two, holding themselves accountable, three, making sure that they are able to keep the nation in line with what is needed. The Nigerian media was such an important thing that people like Nnamdi Azikiwe created the West African Pilot. People like Olufemi Awoyemi created the Nigerian Tribune. In the north, I think we also created
New Nigeria.
New Nigeria by Haruna, I believe it was Haruna and then later Bakar. That is just to tell you just the power. That change could not be achieved without the means of communication, information asymmetry, passing information of what is happening in government or what government is doing or what citizens are feeling. That was the simple thing. But societies change. Our politics also change. When our politics change, we weaponize those platforms. And somewhere along, we went from news to opinion. In some ways, if you've studied very well, we went from news to opinion. And so opinion became the main thing where people bought papers. Then from opinion, we went to sponsored opinions. From sponsored opinion, we went on to what? The PR people came in.
Yes.
Once the PR people came in, they are so critical. They've always been critical to help you understand issues, provide information. But the PR people came in a very stronger way. They were then able to influence not only what you wrote, but who advanced in those news houses. Mm. And so when you brought that in, there were compromises that had to take place along the line. So at a stage, you then found out that the lines, like I said, between the media and PR became blurred. But nowhere more so than what I coined a name for it. I said, once we move from the fourth estate of the realm, a concept coined from the British Parliament, whereby you had the Premier, you had whatever, and then when they sat in those cubicles, they sat at the fourth aisle.
Yeah.
So they became the fourth estate of the realm. We created the fifth estate of the realm, which was the PR firms, the perception managers, who therefore they can take over the front page, they can take over the back page, and they actually can take over whatever you think. Both in the print, the radio, and on TV. And so we moved from news to opinion because it also was commercially relevant.
Yeah.
So if you look at all these journeys, sitting in terms of a structural manner for it is that the Nigerian media on its own does not have a sustainable business model structure.
I think that's been a problem from...
No, there's no model. So where is the money coming from? I want to see the income streams that is sustainable to do investment, to do whatever, to do innovation, to do. It has always been the same arguments you made concerning banks earlier on, owner manage. It has always been one principal person pushing the whole thing. The only time we tried to do something like a combination of people was when we tried to do Nest 2, 3, 4.
And they were shut out by the PR people.
Which then answered your question. You see what happened there? Yeah. Who shut it down? The PR people.
PR people.
So which takes us back to your first questions and second question. When I said it's about managing the information gap, the trust is a function of the information gap, but if the information gap is about make-believe, and people cannot vent, is there. So if you then look at the news, anyone, I challenge you to look at the news. If it's not of commercial value, it's not news. I challenge anyone in the last 1 month to tell me how many news has it gotten about positive things that have happened, about somebody in a primary school, about some medical achievements, about some new technological innovation, about a struggling woman who has excelled very well. In fact, once in a while when it comes out, it's because somebody returned money that fell in a hand and he returned it and the government gave a picture. No, show me.
It doesn't exist.
Tell me how many times have you described successful marriages? You describe the bad ones because the gossip sells. We have weaponized.
And because actually maybe one party will gain access to the media to tarnish the other one.
We have thus weaponized the media in a way that, so when you talk about development and how people feel about their country, is that certain people can weaponize it to make you feel good, and then certain people are paid like what they call like a farm, where they are saying the government is better than the sliced bread. Nobody's engaging anymore. So what you have is that you have politics, parties, and personalities, rather than policies, programs, and plans. And so everyone is fighting to survive. There are no subscriptions. The adverts are not regular. The newspaper says, what is the total volume of newspapers collectively in the country? You don't even have to say, but you know yourself. It's not significant. It hasn't grown, it has always gone down. So whenever you find some guys doing some great work, like a few of them doing, it's a fresh breath of air. And guess what? The armies are there who is going to hit down the person who's doing that. One of the reasons I don't even talk in public is that you then see some persons who may have some idea of how he feels, and then they weaponize it, and then they put money behind it, and they tell you that you are trending. Trending about what? So you can't be discussing trending when you're discussing development. And so those who are involved in development, it's hard work. And so when you might be surprised that I am not speaking like I spoke maybe 20 years ago concerning government, it's because, not because I have become settled, but I have sat down in the rooms where some of these decisions are taken. And I've seen that even when a decision is taken in the morning that this thing is good for them, by the evening the politics takes over. And in order to move along, that's the function of democracy, so that if I agree with you on something, but by the time 4 or 5 people come in and we cannot do so because we needed concurrence, you are going to do a trade-off. Yeah. And then you say, hold on, we'll get back. But that's not the same thing in the media. The media has played a significant role. Do you know what the media played since 1993 during the election for us to get independence, during the struggle for democracy? We couldn't have done anything without the media. Those gentlemen who were there, both at editorial level and as news level and as correspondents, they put their lives on the line.
Yes.
There are few people who do that. I will mention Fisayo and a few others. I know quite a number of them. A number of them do it. Or like the guys in Premium Trust, they do a number. There are quite a number of people who still do it. Have you ever seen a situation whereby a media house has been attacked and the whole body of the media protected that person? No.
No.
Exactly the point. Exactly the point. Have you seen certain things that have evolved right now? You have an international body of investigative journalists or whatever. People protect you from outside rather than protect you from inside. But have you not seen also that you've had members of that profession conduct themselves in manners that are unethical? Or people in corporate organizations themselves working with PR firms energize and initiate news to hurt their principals, hoping that they can also make money? Again, if you understand what I told you about phases, right? This phase will occur, there will be a dislocation, there will be disruption. But in about 5-7 years, you begin to see a separation. So organizations, the media, they say we move towards what you call a sustainable media, because they would understand that the media represents the gateway to the trust of the society.
Lastly, we talked about Japa and its benefits, but still, even with the Japa, if I may exercise my license to use that word, Nigeria is still heavily youth-centric, with a youth population of about, statistics put it around 60-65%. So what do we do with this energy? How can we harvest them positively, take them away from fraud, take them away from the increasingly spreading of addiction to substances, and harness them to benefit both themselves and our society?
I don't have competence to offer an advice in that area. I can only share my perspective as an individual, what I would tell any younger one.
You are a
around
leader,
me.
it's important.
Any younger one around me. And that is to say to him that, first, the responsibility is for us to be better role models. And when I say better role models, is to move closer to what they consider to be success. This is a world that I've seen that waiting may not be the most ideal, and the evidence supports them, so I do not disagree with them. The second thing is that this generation has had more information and exposure than any other generation. So the ability to think and make decisions are faster. But they are also a generation that's had more pressure on them than any other one.
Yes.
So what I think we can do is to try and do so much to remove all those limitations in their way. There's not much we need, because they have both, they can see tomorrow, they have seen the past, and they have more information to make decisions. What we need to do is to take all those barriers in front of them away. And there are quite a number of them. Stigmatization. This is how it should be done. That society is not accommodating, to be honest with you. And then this issue about you saying some of them are involved in deviant behaviors or whatever. Everybody has been involved in deviant behaviors. So when you become successful, you just talk about it like a joke. You understand? That's what makes them youth. But we just protect them and we reward those who do those things you want society to be like. So when you look at the reward system and you say, oh, they are rewarding these people there. Lastly, and I will say this, is that let us, while we promote spirituality, let us downplay religiosity. Because it dumps down people's brains a lot.
Exactly.
And I'm saying this, I'm looking into the camera, it dumps down people's brain. This Nigeria, Japan would die to have the Nigerian youthful population. Many countries still have our youthful population. Those guys they consider bad today, some of the best artists we produced were those guys that you thought they are there. No? It's the condition that has put them in that situation. Yeah. Maybe it's also good because it makes them rugged and strong. I don't want to live in an ideal society. I'm going to live with the good and bad. But I'm saying that I would rather get out of the way of these guys and provide opportunities for them to excel. Give them a chance. Some of them don't even have a chance. Some don't even have accommodation. Some don't even have basic things. Some of them train themselves from youth. And then somebody someday is coming to tell them what it is. You know, people like to come out and talk as if they're smart. As, oh, this Nigeria youth should improve. No. Be yourself. That's why you're a youth. But as you grow older and you see better structures and influences and reward system around you, you're going to make a decision. But if there's a last thing to say is that maybe you should do it maybe before in your early 20s, because after that it may be too late for you to change.
Vintage Femi Awoyemi, Don't judge the youth, provide opportunities for them to express themselves and, more importantly, be themselves. And like he said, all of us were once youths, and we know our own transition from youth to adulthood. It's been an exciting time with, like I said at the beginning, one of the most intelligent Nigerians that I've ever met. I know that given the trouble that we gave him before he eventually made it here, if the time comes for us to return him, because there are a wide range of issues we, just for the sake of time, couldn't exhaust. I know that if we ask him to make a return, he will oblige us. He's a friend of the house, he's our ambassador, and he is somebody always willing to give of himself. Thank you very much once more.
Thank you, sir.
And we sincerely appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you very much, Inke.
Before we leave today, we will give a special shout out to Kelechi Nwosu and his crew, staff of TBWA, for their hospitality in providing their facility, their studio, made us comfortable and enabled us to bring this to you. TBWA will forever remain loyal. Thank you so much. So this is our token of appreciation for the time you spend with us here today.
Thank you.
We value you a lot. We can't ever take you for granted. We are small, but take us for who we are. Thank you very much.
I am grateful. I am grateful, and I wish you all the best. And I think that by the time this thing goes big, I will come back again. From here at CSUD, where honest conversations are taken with CSUD leaders, and I, Olufemi Awoyemi, I endorse what is happening here, and I look forward for you watching this session and also giving your feedback. And then I will look forward to coming back and engaging again in an interactive way.